Good morning and welcome back to Gaming with ADHD, where today we're going to be continuing our deep dive into the Batman Gotham City Chronicles role-playing game. I'm your host, Brian, and I'm joined by my lovely co-host. Introduce yourself, lovely co-host.
I'm the wife.
I'm the wife. That's
I
fair.
don't get paid enough for this.
Just all of my paychecks and occasional trips to Disney.
That requires all of my paychecks to help pay for.
I mean, we do what we must. But
Anyway,
all right. So are we, it's been a couple of weeks since we were able to do this.
blame your sister.
That's true. It is my sister's fault. So, but did you at least have fun on your break?
I did.
You did. Good. So, for those of you who are new or don't remember, we did
Or don't care.
Or don't care. That's also entirely true. But Kim and I did take off last week because my sister decided that we needed to go to Ireland. We had my brother is actually over there at the moment, and so he said that any family that could get themselves over there would have a place to stay. And so essentially we got, free room and somewhat free board as well. So, it was a nice reduced cost trip, even though it was wet and cold and windy and muddy and
There was a lot of mud.
I am not saying that February is a bad month to go to Ireland, but it is
Might not be the best month
yeah, it's probably
for tourism.
suboptimal for tourist purposes. But I kissed the Blarney Stone.
Why do you keep bringing that up like it's some big deal?
I mean, even my 80-year-old dad with Parkinson's managed to do it. So just throwing it out there.
If y'all want Irish herpes, I don't know.
Irish space herpes.
Yeah.
Oh,
pagan herpes.
Yes, there you go. Which, for those of you wondering why we're bringing that up,
I'm not.
I know you're not. No, we actually we did have some fun this last weekend, where Kim joined me and a nice motley cast of characters to play some Alternity, which if you've been here in the mornings, I've been covering that. So how was that for you?
It was different.
Different? Why was it different?
I've not really played a role-playing game before, so, there's definitely a learning curve, and I'm sure I have plenty to go on figuring out how to be a better player. Anyway.
Well,
I mean, it was fun. It's just also it was very frustrating because I was feeling a little lost.
Well, and that definitely happens, but it was it definitely, everybody did say that you did great, that they even saw you improve over the course of the game.
I know. They're probably lying.
They're probably lying. I don't think so, but regardless, it definitely helps get things kind of, greasing the wheels.
I would be interested to see how all of them would collaborate and come together on playing this game, though. I think it would be fascinating.
I see, and that's actually one thing I kind of want to do with that little subgroup is just kind of use it for one shots. Take some of these games that we've been going over, and
I don't know if we could get Bear to play My Little Pony or Max or other
Oh,
Max?
okay. I think Max Liao.
Cody would, I think. I think he
Cody
totally
would play. Cody would play anything.
Yeah.
Max Liao actually does like anthropomorphic animals, so I think you could probably get him to play My Little Pony.
Okay. Maybe not as a pony, though.
I don't know.
Oh.
Mr. Max, I would go with you. Probably not, but
Unless he could be a drunk pony.
unless he could be a drug. I mean, that, whatever gets people over the hump. But yeah, so who knows? We'll see what happens with it.
Or
but
in this case, it would be over the jump because horses can make jumps.
yes, that's that. That's very true.
Work with me.
But I will say, folks, do keep an eye out. I'm not sure I'm gonna have it ready for tomorrow, but it'll definitely be up this week. We actually did record the session from the other day, so if you want to see me looking like a disaster and Kim
That's
looking
every day.
awesome,
How is that abnormal?
that's true. I'm just saying, they if they just wanted another reason to laugh at me, it'll get posted
No,
soon.
maybe it's a more entertaining disaster as opposed to your normal disaster.
I look, everybody said they had fun and it seemed to work okay. Lies. Great. Thanks. So, all right. Well, regardless, folks, there's a lot coming up. So do make sure you're subscribed to the channel.
If you want to.
Because I do try to put out a few videos each week, do some live streams. I definitely need to get back to painting miniatures. I mean, I'm only pulling myself in 8,000 directions, but
As your brain does.
as my brain does.
You're so neurospicy.
Anyways, all right.
I know you hate it. That's why I said it.
I know. I just said. Anyways, that's my issue. So let's do this because technically Kim's got to be out a little bit early tonight to go hang out.
I have girly stuff to do, so
this isn't girly stuff?
No.
Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure. All right, so she can get off on.
Well, I guess it can be if you're that kind of girl.
Anyhow, so I guess we should probably
that sounds wrong.
Go ahead and get started. So what are we talking about today?
I guess the boring stuff.
The boring stuff. One might say the important stuff.
Okay, I'm just saying if I fall asleep, you're on your own, pal.
That's fair. All right. So before we get into it, folks, do make sure you're subscribed to the channel. I do try to put out a few videos, live streams every week, covering all sorts of tabletop content. In addition, I am trying to be really consistent about doing these Tuesday night live streams with deep dives. So absolutely would love for you to come along, see what we have to share.
And see if it'll help you sleep at night without melatonin. Because you put them to sleep.
Oh, right. Yeah, exactly. You could use it
it's like
as
white
sleep
noise.
aid. Exactly. There you go. I
Instead,
never heard of my voice.
Instead, it's called nerd noise.
Nerd noise. There we go. All right. So today we're going to be getting into the actual game system itself. Because we all want to know how exactly do we, as our own bat character, punch somebody in the face. So, all right.
Okay.
When are tests performed?
I don't know, but I think you're about to tell us.
I am about to tell you. So tests are carried out when the outcome of a character's action is uncertain. There's no need to do a test for simple or everyday actions unless there are extraordinary circumstances that could affect a positive outcome. There's also no point in performing a test for an action that the character has absolutely no chance of executing successfully. For example, if they do not possess the necessary superpower,
Hey. Why aren't we using those rules for your alternity or whatever the crap it's called? Your space theme. Because this would have helped us, with all those stupid doors and the fact that I don't know how to hack anything on a computer. I'm just saying.
So, we did.
I just
And
don't think we should have needed to do so many tests. Like for 3 doors, that was too many. 1 door, sure. Maybe
the
a
pa-
second door in a highly secured area, sure. But dear God,
the
that was a lot of
power
doors.
was off in a space station. Doors aren't
Door
going
is
to
ajar.
work.
The door is ajar.
No, the door was sealed shut. That was the
The door
problem.
needed to be ajar, okay?
Well, maybe if you had passed your tests, you guys would have gotten through the doors faster.
We didn't need that many doors, bruh. Bruh.
I didn't design the space station. So,
That sounds like a you problem anyway, because you're gonna have to fix it.
you know what? We're getting there.
Okay,
So,
segue over. Go.
all right. You can, however, ask to do a test if success is certain, but the degree of success is important for what happens next. Finding a playing card left by the Joker in a library is a simple action, but if you need to know how much time the character takes to find it, you could request a difficulty 0 test and decide whether the character was slow or quick depending on the scores. A test includes I have never seen it presented that way, but I really like that the way they put that. Okay. Just if you've got if you just want to figure out how much time it takes something to happen, it's going to happen. They're guaranteed success. But does it take them 5 minutes? Does it take them an hour? Whatever. Um, difficulty 0 test, roll, and then however high they score, that that can determine the time. I really like that idea. So, all right, that's good. All right, cool. All right, a test includes all the characters' attempts to achieve a successful outcome. This means that it is generally not possible for them to try again after having failed unless there has been a significant change in the circumstances in which the test is performed. All right. So tell us how tests are performed.
They are performed by rolling a 1d20. The result is then added to 1, the mod of the main characteristic used for the action. This characteristic is specified in the rules or determined by the GM, depending on which they think is more relevant. 2, any bonus given by one character trait plus any penalty inflicted by one disadvantage. 3, any bonuses given by capacities the character has mastered in one or several ways. 4, any bonus given by a capacity in a team way. And 5, potentially a bonus equal to the level the character has obtained in the way corresponding to the area of expertise related to the test, if no capacity can be used for this test.
So, real quick on number 3, I think we should look at this parenthetical. So it says the same way cannot grant bonuses from more than one of its capacities. If several of them can be used, choose the most advantageous one. So you can have multiple ways impact your bonuses, but you can't.
Bonuses to your capacities, though.
No. So
That's
remember,
what I said.
the ways, like way of uh corporations. Okay, so it has 5 different capacities as part of it. So you can only pick a bonus from one of the capacities, but you could have a way of corporations and way of, because I forget the ways off the top of my head, but I could have the ways of punching people in the face, and I can pick a bonus from both of those capacity or both of those ways and add it in, but I can't pick a bonus from 2 different capacities on the same way. Did I confuse you?
My brain is already checked out, so whatever.
I mean,
Literally, I had my doctor's appointment and they told me to do stuff, and like I forgot the second she left me in the room, and yeah,
got it. All right.
I
Well,
am getting older by the second.
okay. So, well, folks, just remember, you know, only one only one bonus from each way can apply. So, all right. Let's keep going.
Ways possessed by the characters represent both their capacities and proficiency in the area of expertise in question. The way of the melee gives bonuses for MA, but also measures the character's knowledge in this domain. For example, depending on the defensive position taken by an opponent, you can deduce whether the character is well versed in a martial art. The same is true for way of ranged weapons, which not only gives bonuses for RA, but also provides the character with knowledge of these ranged weapons, how they function, their range, etc. Similarly, the way of mechanic helps determine the complexity of a machine. Way of medicine can show whether someone is hiding an injury. Way of stealth can tell us which outfit to wear in order to move unseen in the dark. Interesting with that way of medicine. I wouldn't have thought that you would want to know if someone's hiding an injury, but I guess it would be helpful to know if you are fighting them and want to know how much effort to make to hurt them.
Well, but yeah, I mean, you could do it for that, but I mean, it could also apply like to a perception roll. You know, like okay, you run into you know to a civilian, they look scared. Um, you know, uh, is it because they're infected with Joker venom, or is it because they've been shot by the street goon? Um, you know,
Wouldn't they tell you if they're hurt?
not what if it's a kid and they're scared or something like that. I'm just saying
You're scared.
there's a lot of ways to actually use that, but I like that they put in this list of, oh, hey, here's these different ways, and here's some different things that you could get bonuses for. Um, it's it I'm enjoying reading all of these books lately because they're giving me different ways to think on it. So, um, anyways, that's go ahead.
The rest of this description kind of takes the example and expands on it. So I'm going to go ahead and read this example.
Okay.
Batwoman has 4 levels in the way of vigilante. She glimpses the shadow of a costumed character running down a dark alley and tries to determine who it is with a perception test whose difficulty is set at 20. The player embodying Batwoman rolls 1d20 and the result is 12. To this they add their perception mod plus 4 and the number of levels that Batwoman has in the way of vigilante, in this case 4. So the final results 12 plus 2, 4 plus 4 equals 20. Batwoman recognizes Nightwing's silhouette despite the lack of light. Nothing escapes the laser sharp vision of Gotham City's most devoted super heroine. Um, as long as the situation fits, all common ways and ways of shadows can be used in this way, but not ways of wonders. Using the ways like this has to be done in combination with a test that is not covered by a capacity. Obviously, if the test allows the player to use a capacity, the bonus corresponding to the number of levels possessed in the way is not added to the bonuses afforded by the capacity. Like one or
Okay.
the other.
Yeah, I
But
like
I
that.
mean, literally, the example helps me understand that you are doing perception tests to use your way of um whatever this is, stealth or
Yeah, well,
whatever.
that's just one
Oh,
example.
vigilante.
Um, yeah, and that's just one example.
I know,
It doesn't always
but
have to be a perception
I
check, but yeah,
can read all of these rules, but it's not going to make sense to me without a practical application example, which is why I question why you don't want to read examples, because it helps my brain put 2 and 2 together. Otherwise, this is just words on a page. I need
okay.
visuals. I'm a very visual person, and literally, you want to know how I got from A to B in that game we were playing on Saturday? It wasn't just you saying, "Don't look at the dice." No, it was you telling me that I was looking at a screen with a blinky, okay? Which made me visualize the movie that had a similar situation, and then I could figure out, "Oh, I need to talk to the computer through, typing questions and getting answers, like war games."
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
give me pictures.
Okay. All right. Well, we will. I was
Not
usually the.
literal pictures, but, imagery in words.
That's fine. Then we will adjust as needed if we think the examples. If I think an example is good, I'll read it. If you want to read one, read it as well. Or if you're confused, tell me, and we'll go back and we'll look at it again.
I'm probably gonna be confused most of the time.
All right. Well, let's keep going and we'll see what we can figure out.
Fine.
All right. Which characteristic to use? Strength is used for all actions requiring muscular force. Constitution is used for all actions requiring endurance or health, holding your breath, walking for a number of hours. Dexterity is used
Doing
for all
squats.
doing. No, technically that would be strength, lifting a heavy object.
Well, not passing out when you do deadlifts.
You know? All right.
I like poking fun at the bear.
Dexterity is used for all actions requiring accuracy, reflexes, discretion, or agility. Crossing the city, swinging on a rope, picking a lock, etc. Intelligence is used for all actions requiring memory and the comprehensions of complexities, memorizing information, solving a puzzle. Perception is used for all actions requiring the use of one or more of the five senses, finding a clue, following a fresh lead, sniffing out a subtle smell. Willpower is important each time the character's politeness, persuasion, or will is required.
Your butt's not a subtle smell, by the way. Just saying. I'm bringing the quality entertainment.
Clearly.
I have no willpower against chocolate. Just saying.
All right. For the attempt to be a success, the total must... Wait.
Blah, blah. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah. I think you got that.
Oh.
That was it.
Okay. For the attempt to be a success, the total must be at least as high as the difficulty level fixed by the GM based on the table below. If the total result of the die roll plus modifier plus capacity bonus is below the difficulty of the action, the attempt fails. The table of difficulty levels is only for reference. Feel free to change the difficulty required for tests depending on circumstances that may either help a cooperative witness, headlights illuminating a fugitive, the suspicious color of a candy aiding in the detection of the poison it contains, or hinder the characters, such as picking a lock without tools, dim light that makes examining a crime scene difficult. The scale of examples offered below goes from 5 to 30, but the difficulty of a test can, of course, be lower than 5 or higher than 30 for actions that are practically impossible but can be performed by extraordinary beings, or actions for which the degree of failure needs to be determined.
I'm okay with that.
All right. Let's see.
Part.
Okay. For example, Alfred Pennyworth is being chased.
I just told you didn't have to read the examples. I was okay with that.
I thought that's what you meant, but I wasn't. Anyways. All right, here we go. If the next part of the scenario absolutely requires a successful test, lower the difficulty. Or if a roll fails, simply add a complication rather than something that blocks the story.
Yeah, lower the difficulty, Brian.
No, not lower the difficulty. Find a way for failure to keep the story moving.
If you say so.
Let's see. You may also suggest that players spend 1 EP. After all, exploit points are made for these sorts of situations. Nothing is more frustrating for everyone than having an adventure come to a grinding halt just because of an unfortunate dice roll.
Yeah. Or multiple unfortunate dice rolls and too many doors. Just saying.
There were not too many doors.
Yes, there
We
was.
all just kept trying to go through them.
No. The
All
space
right.
station was stupid. There's too many doors on it.
There were not.
Yes, there was. Why do you need so many stupid doors to make a hallway? No, you don't need doors for hallways. Just keep it free flowing.
It's a space station.
Stop arguing. I'm right.
You need the doors in case of explosive decompression.
Your face needs a door. I'm spicy.
I was to say, apparently Kim woke up and chose violence today, folks.
Yeah.
All right. So, here's the chart. Obviously it's standard difficulties. It doesn't necessarily have to go by values of 5. You could say something is difficult, but maybe a little bit more difficult. Make it a 16 or a 17. But yeah, that's how that works. All right. Tell us about opposed tests.
I oppose every test you give me. How about that?
Clearly.
All right. When two opponents are engaged in an action that pits one directly against the other, they have to perform opposed tests in which both sides roll the die. The one with the highest score wins. Critical successes and failures are never taken into account except for special actions. In case of a tie, opponents either perform a second test or maintain the status quo, depending on the situation. Why are there opposed tests? Is that like they're actually fighting or determining if they're going to fight?
Well, no, an opposed test is like, okay, the simple answer is a tug of war. Okay. So my strength versus your strength. We're both trying to, to pass a check, and we're trying to do it better than the other person. Or in the example here, so Robin is trying to sneak into a warehouse without being seen by the gangsters guarding it. The GM decides that the opposed test will be performed against the bad guy's vigilance. So the bad guys are going to make a vigilance test, and Robin's going to make a sneaking test.
So it's not just for fighting, or
correct.
It's probably not for fighting at all.
It's usually not for fighting at all. Usually for combat, it's like in a D20 style system, usually for combat, they're going to have a defense value. And as long as you roll your attack higher than the defense value, then you hit. But this is when opposed tests are when you're trying to do something with a skill, quote unquote, and they're trying to use a skill to stop you.
Okay.
So
you want me to read cooperative and series of tests just to finish off the page?
Yep.
Cooperative tests. In certain situations, one character can help another to successfully complete an action. Each participant attempts a test with the same characteristic as the one used by the main instigator of the action. If successful, it gives the main instigator a +2 bonus, a +4 in critical success. If it's combat, the player must choose whether to give this bonus to their ally for their attacks or DD, but this must be stated before the ally rolls their attack dice. Okay, so that was bringing in fighting. Okay. Series of tests. It is sometimes necessary to perform several successful tests consecutively in order to complete an action or resolve an opposition, especially if the event or situation is important for the adventure, or if the GM wants to increase the tension of the scene with a little suspense. Imagine a scene where Batman is trying to claw a detonator from Bane's hands. This could be resolved by just one roll of the dice, but it's tempting to up the ante and ask Batman to make 3 opposed tests with Bane, which would correspond to 3 steps of the action. Batman overpowering Bane, getting a hold of the detonator, and finally ripping it from Bane's grasp. In addition, to adding suspense and allowing for more comments from the spectators. Imposing a series of tests can give a less random outcome than just one roll of the die, allowing for more nuance with partial successes or relative failures. I can understand it. GM wanted to use that, but also if you are trying just to do a one-off and you're trying to get it done a little bit faster, you probably don't want to do series.
Well, again, it all depends. A lot of it is to kind of add to the tension because you're
I
going
read that, but I
well, but
also feel like in the interest of time, you might want to skip that on many things. Like
you
a security door, having to do a security code before you can get it open.
I did nothing wrong. So, real
I'm
quick,
just saying.
I do want to mention with the cooperative tests, your point about it being also related to combat, I did think was interesting. Because typically, like a combined test is not going to be used for combat. Um,
Well, it
they
just said right there, it helps the defense dice roll, whatever. I don't know if that's what
no
that means.
damage dice.
Okay. I was just thinking defense for
No, DD is damage dice in this game, but
your damage dice
no,
in
but
the brain.
here like in most games that's what it or that's how they do it. It's it's really only used for skills, like I'm trying to to hack a computer or open a door or whatever, and so we're
You just had
both
to bring that up. I'm very touchy about that right now.
I know. Um, but in this case, it actually does kind of make sense that you can do combined tests for combat because it's Batman. Think about it. How many times are you
He
watching
has a sidekick or 3,
exactly?
5, maybe 10.
Exactly.
Well,
And
and if you also think about it, like the bad guys a lot of times have, what do they call them? They're thugs or whatever.
henchmen.
Henchmen, thank you. So
Right.
why
No,
can't Batman have his allies?
no, right. No, you can, but I think I think like normally like in a game of D&D, if my character is near your character and we're fighting against a bad guy, usually I'll just get like a straight bonus to the attack roll. Okay. You don't actually have to make a test in order to do so. So, but in this case, they're saying no, make make a test, and it could either go towards increasing the ability of me to attack or changing the amount of damage that's done. Um, Regardless, you don't. My point is, you don't normally see that, and I think it's interesting that they included that because of the fact that it's Batman. So, all right. Critical success. During a test, a critical success is obtained in two ways. When the player receives 20 upon rolling the d20 with no modifier, a result of 12 with a d12 does not qualify as a critical success. When the total result obtained with modifiers is at least 10 points higher than the level of difficulty. So if you have a difficulty 20 and you manage to get a combined 30, there you go. For a generic action, a critical success allows the character to obtain an extra advantage of the player's choice as long as the GM agrees, in addition to the success of their action. That's kind of interesting that the player would get to choose, but okay. For example, the character manages to jump over a precipice and land standing up, or they find footprints on the ground and can tell how many people are in the group being followed. Note that tests where characters are passive or resisting something aren't always suited to having the result improved because of something decided by the player. Um, for example, if the character is trying to resist the effects of poison, a critical success in a constitution test will not bring any extra benefit. In combat, the damage dice of a critical success in an attack are doubled. Critical fail. Similarly, a test is deemed a critical fail in two cases.
Hey,
When there
pause,
is
pause, pause. I didn't realize I was on mute. I was asking if what you would actually use as a test in order to resist the effects of poison then. Not constitution, but which test would you use?
Um,
Or is there nothing that can
well, no, so that would
stave
normally
that
be
off?
like a constitution test or
It just said that wouldn't help.
uh oh, sorry, just in okay, so well no, what this is
I'm
talking
talking about the
about is
example.
a critical success. So if you're making a constitution test to resist the effect of a poison, getting a critical success doesn't mean that suddenly my cancer is gone too. It just means that you still successfully resisted the poison.
Oh, extra benefit. Okay, sorry. Thank you.
Yep.
I'm good.
Okay. Critical fail. Similarly, a test is deemed a critical fail in two cases. When the result on the D20 is 1, a result of 1 with a D12 does not qualify as a critical. I does not okay. I don't like that. So, critical fail on a D20, you know, is if you roll a 1, okay, makes sense. I can understand why you can't get a critical success when you're rolling a D12, but I don't see why you couldn't still have the critical failure. I don't know. I would probably house rule that, but that's just me.
Nah, I wouldn't change it.
Well, yeah, because it makes it anyways.
It helps the characters.
That's true. All right, when the result on the D20 is at least 10 points lower than the level of difficulty. If a 1 is rolled, the action automatically fails, even if the final result indicates a success. In both cases, the GM is completely free to add an extra negative effect to a failed test. There's no obligation for them to do so if the situation isn't suitable, or it would be awkward at that point in the scenario. Note that players may use an exploit point after having rolled a 1. Sometimes the dice are just cursed.
Mhm.
All right. Take a 10 or 20. The point of taking a 10 or 20 is to avoid a random dice roll for an important action and guarantee success by taking the time necessary to make it happen. This means that the character uses all the means at their disposal and all the time it takes to ensure a successful outcome. It's not necessarily important to detail all the means used to do so, although the GM may ask for general details of what the character is doing. This system can be used for tests for searching for clues or any other long and complex action. For example, hacking a security system, climbing a barrier with the necessary equipment, investigating an area, or performing an intensive search of an apartment in order to find clues. Taking a 10 means spending a lot of time on an action that would usually be completed fairly quickly in order to obtain an automatic success. Of course, this is only possible for their actions that are not too difficult, as in a difficulty no higher than 10. For an action that would usually take 1 round, if the character takes 2d6 minutes, they obtain the equivalent of a 10 from a d20 test, rather than performing the same action more quickly but risking failure through the roll of the dice. Taking a 20 means in certain cases, if the difficulty of the test exceeds 10, the GM can also allow the character to take 2d6 hours and give the player the equivalent of a 20 from a d20 test. Note, however, this never gives rise to a critical success.
So you have to declare that I'm taking a 10 or taking a 20, and then you can just roll a different dice to do something?
No, you don't roll at all.
But
Because remember, you're going to roll a
no,
d20
but
to.
it says that you're like rolling for minutes
Uh,
or
that's how.
rounds.
Right. That's how long it's going to take. But that's the thing is taking a 10 or taking a 20 is that's the result of your roll. You're not rolling your d20 dice because
Yeah, but
you're
oh, okay, but explain to me how that would work in a gameplay.
okay. So say that I am the world's best computer hacker. Okay. I can hack anything as long as I have enough time. Okay. So in this case, I could say, hey, so is there any pressure? Are we being like, do I see any of the Joker's goons or whatever. Nope, totally
Mhm.
clear. You're in the Bat Cave. You can spend as much time as you want trying to break through this computer program. Okay, cool. I'm going to go ahead and take 20. Okay, so that means I get a 20 on my dice roll. I don't actually have to roll for it. And I automatically succeed at what I'm doing. But the GM's going to be like, okay, it takes you 8 hours because he rolled a 5 and a 3, okay, on 2d6. Okay, so if there's no pressure, okay, why risk a failure? Because you can just take 20. But okay, I'm trying to hack this computer program. Okay, cool. Well, the Joker is getting ready to throw some a gas bomb at you, or the countdown uh on the computer terminal has started flashing red and is about to complete. Okay, well, I don't have 2d6 hours to try and hack this computer program. So now I'm going to have to roll the dice and see what happens. Did I confuse you?
Okay, I just don't see how there would be that many scenarios where you can take 10 or take 20. Usually your games kind of, are action packed, if you will.
Sometimes think about it sort of like an episode of Batman where he's the painting was stolen in the museum, and so Batman sneaks into the museum and he has all the time in the world to look for clues.
That doesn't happen. He's always getting attacked by people.
It
Good
happened.
and bad.
I guarantee you, we will sit down and we will watch we'll just pick a random episode of Batman the Animated Series, and I will find you at least 2 situations where they have him, quote unquote, taking 10 or taking 20 because he has
Are you
all
sure
the
you're
time
not
in the
talking about
world.
like an Adam West episode where everything is like
I
murderously slow paced and
I
silly?
said Batman the Animated Series.
I'm just
Anyways,
saying. All right. Exploit points.
all right. Exploit points allow heroes to get a bit of help from the universe. Each exploit point spent allows 10 to be added to the result of a d20. Using 1 EP is done after having discovered the result. Only 1 EP can be used per round. During any combat, spending an EP allows the defense score to be increased by plus 10 against just one attack. Note that certain ways give characters the possibility of using exploit points in ingenious ways. Exploit points are only regained after an adventure has ended or every 4 to 8 hours of play, as soon as a break or positive event allows the characters to rest or get their confidence back. EP and critical success. If a test is successfully performed, spending 1 EP transforms it into a critical success.
So one level up.
Yeah, so like similar to
I
the
know.
last resort
I
points from
remember.
Alternity, where it's just like, oh, I'm going to spend 1 and convert it from a success to a critical success. Okay, I like that. All right. All right, last thing. EP and role playing. Exploit points are also a way for the GM to encourage players to get theatrical and really become their characters. A great piece of acting or any other exceptional in-game effort that the other players appreciate can be rewarded by the immediate gain of 1 EP. And finally, EP use by NPCs. Important NPCs also have exploit points and can use them as follows. Spend 1 exploit point in order to perform an extra action during a round of combat, or spend 1 exploit point to reroll after a critical fail obtained by the GM, or to transform a normal success into a critical success obtained by a hero during an attack. Spend 2 EP to cancel damage inflicted by a hero. NPCs regain their exploit points after 24 hours.
Now, how do NPCs enter the game? Are they like familiars and they start with you, or do you find them and then they like
NPC,
latch on
NPC,
to you
NPC
like a
is
video game?
any non-player character. It can be a
Right.
villain, it can be Commissioner Gordon, it could be
But
you
you
know,
have to be the one rolling dice for them, right? Dice.
correct. Basically, this is saying, the GM sometimes will use exploit points if it's an important NPC. So
Oh, okay.
like
Because I was thinking of it being kind of like games that we've played, like maybe Descent or something, where you get a card that has a familiar, and then you have to keep track of their point system, if you will.
no,
But it's
and
more. This is for the GM, not for
well, hold on. You're
players.
kind of confusing it because an NPC is any character in the game not controlled by a player.
Non-player character.
Non-player character, exactly. So
Okay.
it
No, I
again,
get that. I'm just saying my brain was thinking, since this rule was right here, that it was applicable, to characters having to do that, like, Bat
no.
Batman and Robin, like you would roll for Robin too, but it makes more sense for the GM to have control of that.
Right. Well, and on top of that, if you're you know, if there's going to be a Batman and Robin situation, it should
A
just be
player is
another
going to be
player
Robin.
character. Yeah,
Right.
exactly. So,
All right.
all right. Tell us about
Cool.
investigating and looking for clues.
I wish you would learn how to do that around the house better. Anyway, investigations are an important part of the scenarios in Batman RPG, whether you are a detective, crime fighter, or criminal. However, what is known as an investigation is actually made up of several stages of searching, which may or may not be linked to each other or with each other. At the end, these allow the player to obtain the main information they were looking for, the name of the culprit, the objective of a plan hatched by the supervillain, the location of a gang's hostages, etc. This means that for the scenario to advance, several pieces of information must be obtained, like pieces of a puzzle that come together to make a picture or indicate a new lead to explore. If the characters are not able to access the necessary clues because of bad rolls of the dice, they will be stuck, bringing the scenario to a halt and demoralizing the player, aka doors. Obvious clues. Finding key clues should not depend on a roll of the dice, rather, on common actions that do not require a test, such as when inspecting a crime scene, finding a weapon that has been dropped on the ground, getting the description of a gangster from witnesses questioned, realizing that it was a joker who left the playing card that was found, working out how to a break-in was organized by watching the security camera footage, finding biographical information about a celebrity when searching online, stalker, etc. They went and made a bullet point for etc. Okay. Clues and tests. To make the game more interesting, the GM may still decide that obtaining certain information depends on a test using the relevant characteristic. Perception allows characters to find material evidence that's difficult to spot, like a hair, a stain on a piece of fabric, a tire print on the ground, etc. Intelligence allows the characters to notice that something is wrong through deduction, memory, or specialized knowledge. An object that has been moved or is missing, a hidden meaning in a message, contradictory facts, or a piece of information that only a specialist would see. That's a long one. A test may also be required when a character is trying to do a particularly complex search in a database or computer system. Willpower allows characters to use their gift of the gab to charm. I guess they kiss the Blarney Stone.
Yes.
Intimidate or cajole a piece of information from someone not readily willing to cooperate.
Okay.
Of
All makes sense to
right.
me.
Okay. Do you want me to keep going or
Yep.
okay? Avoiding failure. Maybe you should listen close to this, Brian. To ensure that the continuation of the scenario is not completely based on success at a specific point, the GM has several options. They can remind players how useful exploit points can be if everything seems to indicate that the information they are trying to obtain is crucial to their investigation. Adjust the level of difficulty, adapting it to the character's capacities in order to raise their chances of success. Advise the players to try solutions offer through offer through tests in cooperation with each other and tests where they can take a 10 or a 20. Inform players of their failure using their character's intuition that they have missed something. They can make another attempt after a certain amount of time decided by the GM, or if a new element allows them to take another approach or see things from a different angle. Provide an alternative. Each clue is just a way of delivering information, but this can perhaps be obtained differently later in the scenario. It's up to the GM to devise different ways of allowing players to access the information or doors, even if it means enabling them to explore a few dead ends before giving them the satisfaction of having earned it. We totally earned it. This approach could involve a helpful or neutral NPC, a secondary or overly confident opponent, or perhaps the characters themselves doing something that leads them to receiving the information and being pleased that they got it. Unless there's no other way, try to avoid resorting to chance, as this type of lucky break can seem a little too fortuitous. As in a last resort, if all else fails, you can ask. Oh, and as a last resort, if all else fails, you can ask the characters to perform a test using the appropriate characteristics with a low difficulty level so the character remembers a detail or has the feeling or intuition that puts them back on the right track.
All right. All right. So, any questions about tests? Anything that didn't make sense? Or is it all
No, it's fine because we've had practical applications basically on how you needed to figure it out that with our game that we played on Saturday. So I literally visualized our game on Saturday and where you were like, oh, I need to make an easy button. Let's go. Anyway, you could have just done it faster. That's all.
All right. So, related to tests is combat. So, let's figure out how that works. It's fair to say that altercations are a regular occurrence in Gotham City. Combat is an important place in the comics, and the same is true of an action based role playing game like Batman RPG. However, violent confrontations are a particular type of action scene, and there are special rules to make sure they are recreated simply and smoothly. The game round. A combat scene is split into several rounds, each of which covers around 10 seconds of real time fighting. The rounds are used to manage the actions of the various protagonists. Initiative. A round happens as follows. The order for each participant to take their turn is decided by their initiative score from highest to lowest. If a hero and NPC both have the same initiative score, the hero goes first. If two heroes have the same initiative score, the one with the highest perception performs their action first. This means there's nothing random about who acts when during combat. The characters always perform their actions in the same order over the course of various rounds. Okay, interesting. I probably should have remembered this, but I don't think I did, that there's a fixed initiative score. So, all right. Fighters can choose to wait if they want to perform their action at a lower initiative score than their own.
Wait, pause. I'm
Okay.
sorry. My mic was off again. So, did we need to have initiative scores, or was it okay that we were just chaotically doing stuff randomly?
You're talking about the game on Saturday?
Correct.
So it wasn't combat, so there was no real need for initiative. That's why it would kind of bounce between
right.
who's
And
ready.
You wouldn't want to do initiative for the whole game because that would kind of
correct. And you'll see when we get to the actual combat section of that game, once we finally schedule a second session, initiative works very, very different in Alternity. So,
well, I thought you said that there wasn't supposed to be combat.
No, we just hadn't gotten there yet.
Regardless, Look, it was chaotic not to have, like, an organized way about, going and doing actions. To me, that was chaotic. But I think having an initiative order set for all actions would ruin the creativity. So,
So
it
that's
makes
why, like,
sense for combat.
yeah, exactly. Initiative is usually only used for combat.
Right.
Otherwise, the game master is going to be typically just going around the table, making sure that everybody gets a turn to do something.
We did
Sometime
stop the game sometimes and kind of do a everybody check. Where are you going? What are you doing?
correct. Exactly. Occasionally you'll
And
do that. But when you get to
that's
combat,
ropes in the
like,
chaos.
yeah, and with this, I mean, I thought it was kind of strange to have a fixed initiative score, but then I started realizing, and it's like, okay, if you're going to have a hero like Batman, well, Batman's going to have a better initiative than most characters.
You should.
So, right. And so to leave it kind of fixed makes sense. We'll see if they give rules for, like, shifting it, or changing the order of actions, things like that, cuz it would seem kind of odd to leave that, but we'll see.
Yeah, we're gonna have to speed this up, so I'll try not to derail as
All right.
much.
Fighters can choose to wait if they want to perform their action at a lower initiative score than their own. Some ways allow characters to intervene a second time during a round. You'll find more information on this second opportunity in the description of the ways in question. Actions. When it is their turn, a character can perform one limited action, or one movement action and one attack action, in whichever order they please, or two movement actions and 0, 1, or 2 free actions, as long as these are not the same action performed twice. So I think limited action is something that would take a while to do. Is Would make sense to me. But if the character performs two actions, these are done consecutively during their turn. Free actions can be made during their turn or later in the round if the player prefers.
Again, this is for when there is a fight.
Combat. Yeah.
Right.
When
Okay.
you're trying to punch everybody in the face, this is how this
For
works.
some reason, I had it in my brain when we were playing the game on Saturday. Again, I'm sorry for interrupting, but I thought for some reason that I would be limited on the amount of times I could use the same two skills over and over again. So I was just
Unless
like, "Is that allowed?" Anyway,
unless you're in combat, generally there is not going to be a limit. And even
yeah, I
here,
learned the hard way, but yeah,
but you learned, so that's
I
fine.
did. Okay, go on.
All right, there's 4 types of actions. Limited actions use the character's entire round, but allows them to use a capacity known as a limited action. Movement actions allow a character to run approximately 60 feet, get up, grab a weapon, jump up somewhere high, spin round, etc. Attack actions are for attacking and require a test to be performed for a melee attack, ranged attack, or special attack. Free actions are for quick actions that can be made in addition to the character's other actions, like giving an order, lowering the visor of a helmet, turning on a walkie-talkie. Certain capacities also allow an attack or movement to be performed as a free action. All right, tell us about handling an attack.
When a character tries to attack an opponent, they must perform a test for an MA, or SA, depending on the type of weapon they're using. The difficulty for an attack test is always equal to that opponent's def. If the result of the test is equal or above the def, the attack is a success and the attacker rolls the DD. If the result is lower than the def, then the attack fails and has no effect. Depending on the circumstances, an attack test may be affected by a penalty determined by the GM based on the seriousness of the impediment, and possibly by the level of the characters, with the aim of making things easier for lower level characters when necessary. Similarly, an attack made under fortuitous circumstances can benefit from a bonus determined by the GM, depending on the importance of the advantage. +3 for a melee attack made from a position above the opponent. I have the higher ground. +10 for a melee attack made without the opponent being able to see their attacker. And +5 for a ranged attack from nearby. Don't forget, a critical success for a test for a melee attack or a ranged attack doubles the damage dealt. A critical fail during a test for MA or RA has unpleasant consequences for the character, determined by the GM. During melee combat, this could be a free attack given to the opponent. During a ranged attack test, it could be dropping the weapon, a mechanical problem, or something else. An edge in strength doesn't given any particular doesn't given any particular advantage to tests for doesn't give probably and a particular advantage to tests for melee attacks. An edge in dexterity doesn't give any particular advantage to the test for range attack. That is weird wording.
Yeah, I want either A, the editing on this game is just absolutely atrocious, or somebody missed something when they translated it from French, because Monolith is a French company.
Oh,
so that's
they might have used AI. Rules for. Are you gonna let me go?
Anyways, okay. No, go ahead.
Rules for ranged attack. Ranged attacks are governed by some extra parameters that are aimed at taking into account their specificities. These parameters have been kept simple in order to keep confrontations dynamic and faithful to the way they appear in the comics. At the same time, there are quite a few factors to be taken into account for an attack with the batarang, for example. During a game session, feel free to ignore certain rules if you think they'll adversely affect the pace of the game. Range, my favorite. Ranged weapons are assigned a range. This is indicated in the section regarding equipment or in the capacities of the ways of powers resembling ranged attacks. At point blank range, RA benefit from a bonus of +5. Beyond the defined range, range attacks are made with a penalty of -5. At beyond double this range, RA are made with a penalty of -10. RA beyond 3 times long range are not possible. Line of sight and cover. Performing a ranged attack or a special attack that resembles one logically requires the attacker to have a clear view of their target, which is known as line of sight. To determine lines of sight, you can refer to the indications given by the board of Batman Gotham City Chronicles, if that's where the action is taking place. More commonly, though, it will be taking place elsewhere in a setting of your own invention. With this in mind, and once again in the hope of keeping things simple, we recommend that you use the following principles. When the line of sight is clear, no obstacles between the attacker and their target, the ranged attacks test occurs naturally. When the line of sight is not clear, the target is behind a window or somewhere with furniture, posts, cars, passersby, etc. The range attack has a penalty of -5 applied. Note that short range cancels this penalty, but does not offer the +5 bonus. So it cancels or zeroes it out.
Right.
When the line of sight is partially blocked, the target is in partial cover behind a wall, opposed to a car, or somewhere in the number of obstacles. The range attack test has a penalty of -10. Note that the short range partially cancels this penalty, reducing it to -5. When there is no line of sight and the target has complete cover and the attacker performs an RA to force them to remain there, or in the hopes that they will injure their target through what they're hiding behind, the RA is possible as long as the attacker is localized in their target. A penalty of -10 is applied to the ranged attack, and the target benefits from damage reduction depending on what the cover is made from. And then there's the table there. Characters protecting themselves from an area attack dealt with explosives receive the same DR. I'm guessing I should keep going?
Yeah, because it's still ranged.
Oh, because I'm still doing range. You can do the melee.
Yep.
Movement of the attacker and target. For range attacks performed while the attacker is moving receives a penalty of -5. A range attack aimed at a moving target receives a penalty of -3. Okay.
If you are moving, it's a penalty of -5.
Oh, okay.
If you are shooting at someone moving,
that is not how my brain is translating that. Okay.
Kind of figured.
Yeah, I got stuck. These two penalties can both apply at the same time. If Batgirl runs and throws a batarang at Spoiler, who is trying to escape on a motorbike, her RA is subject to a penalty of -8, which makes sense. Target engaged in melee combat. a RA or ranged attack aimed at a target already involved in a melee combat with one of the attacker's allies receives a penalty of -2 or -5 if an ally is almost completely blocking the target. Understandable. Size of the target. If the attacker is trying to hit a particularly small target, a penalty is applied to the range attack based on the size of the target. Under 3 feet is -3. Less than 1.5 feet is -5. Smaller than 6 inches, -10. Incident. If the character receives a critical fail for their range attack, this causes an incident affecting the ranged weapon being used, or the attacker who drops the weapon. The choice is made by the player.
They
Whichever
give
is
a
chosen.
they give a lot of,
That's a lot of detail for
well,
sure.
no, they give a lot of um
Situations.
options to the players. It's
Well,
like,
right.
oh,
So if
you
a
got a
player
critical
is
failure, you get to decide what happens.
no, but here's what I'm thinking is that because all of this information is given, if you know that you are a ranged attack person, you might want to have this page open or something, or some notes on it. That way you
No,
can
I think it's probably all going to be within
get
like the game master screen. No, but it's like, okay, I'm Batgirl's throwing a batarang at spoiler, and critically fails. Well, then the player then gets to decide, oh, that was my last batarang, or I managed to throw it and trip over it, or whatever it
well,
is.
it's a batarang, so it returns, so it like pops you in the head.
It doesn't return. They're more like ninja stars.
It
Um,
should be. It should operate that way. They gave it the wrong name if they're going to call it a batarang and it doesn't return.
anyway,
Just
there probably are some that do. Um, anyways, I'm just saying there's a lot of things where they're like, oh, the player should decide what happens, when I'm just like, no, this is like the
oh,
game master is the one that tells you why something went horribly wrong.
like a GM would complain.
All right, read the last section.
Whichever is chosen, the character messes up their action and has to use the movement action to make their weapon usable again. Mechanisms and projectiles. In order to avoid complex management of the number of projectiles, which would involve taking into account the various magazine capacities and mechanisms of different ranged attack weapons, we advise you to focus more on the action than the details. Simply accept that putting new projectiles into a weapon in question requires an action to be performed with a frequency depending on the weapon and its workings.
I actually kind of like that. They're like, just be reasonable. If it's a shotgun, okay, you get a couple of 2 to 5 shots off before you have to
Reload.
spend an action reloading.
Right.
That I think that's perfectly reasonable.
If it's a laser gun, though, I guess you could get a lot of shots off before it would need to be recharged.
Sure, but again, they're
Which means that stormtroopers probably didn't recharge their guns enough.
maybe. No, but I'm just saying, I think that's actually a good piece of advice in general. Don't get bogged down in the minutia of how much ammunition have you actually used. Just be reasonable, both on the player and the game master side. So,
all right, special actions. Why don't you special actions some reading?
all right, special actions. During combat, the players and GM can choose to use special actions. These allow a wide range of spectacular actions to be accomplished and can spice up an encounter, but do require a few extra rules. They are not at all obligatory, of course, just ways of adding a little extra energy to a combat, and you are free not to use them if you prefer a more simplified fight. So, melee attack special actions. Grab.
So is grab, if you wanted to make it spicy, you could be grabbing certain things.
This is a family show?
Sure about that?
Yes, I am.
Right. Is it spicy? That's where my brain went.
No, I mean, so grab, like sometimes you're in a fight and you're not trying to punch him in the face. You're trying to, capture the guy or
I know, but if you grab their hair and they seem to like it, it's a little on the kinky side. Just saying.
All right. The fighter performs a melee attack to attempt to grab their opponent by a limb or their clothes. If they fail, the opponent can immediately perform an attack as a free action. If successful, the character does not inflict any damage dice, but doubles the melee attack score for the following attacks they make, as long as the opponent is still in their grasp. Oh, that's interesting. So I can grab you, and then on subsequent turns,
Like,
my roll to attack is doubled as long as I'm still holding you. All right.
again, if Batman has grabbed Catwoman and
Look,
he's holding her,
that's a
I think
separate
she
type of
likes
combat.
it.
The opponent can no longer break away. To escape being grabbed, the opponent has to use a limited action. All right, charge. Charging involves rushing toward an opponent in order to slam into them. It requires a movement action before the attack action and requires enough space to run at least 15 feet directly up to the target. The melee attack does not take into account the defense bonus afforded by any armor worn by the target. If successful, the melee attack damage dice receives a plus 1d6 bonus, temporary or not, depending on the weapon used. If it is a critical success, this bonus applies and the damage dice are also doubled. For a failure, the melee attack is unsuccessful and the attacker is deemed knocked over. In case of a critical fail, the attacker is knocked over and the target can immediately perform a melee attack as a free action. Looking for the weak spot. When their character performs a melee attack, the player may choose to roll 2d20 and keep the lower result of the two. To hit an opponent's weak spot than any other part. Successful, 2 plus 1d4 is added to the damage dice. If the character is supposed to perform their test using 2d20, they roll 3d20 and keep the result of their choice between the two lowest. Disarming an opponent. When a character is involved in melee combat, they can disarm an opponent by performing a successful melee attack test against the melee attack of the target. Target benefits from a +5 bonus for their test if they are holding their weapon with both hands. The attacker only disarms their opponent if they obtain a critical success or there's a difference of at least 10 in their opposed test. If successful, the target is disarmed but receives no damage. If it fails, the target can immediately retaliate with an attack of their choice. Immobilize. An attacker can also try to immobilize their opponent with a joint lock or stranglehold. The principle is the same as for knock to the ground, with the following results. Critical success, the opponent is immobilized and stunned. Success, the opponent is immobilized. Fail, no effect. And critical fail, the opponent can perform a melee attack action as a free action. Maintaining this hold for the following rounds requires one limited action each round, as well as a successful strength test against the opponent's strength, with the following results. Critical success, the opponent remains immobilized and is once again stunned. Success, the opponent remains immobilized. Fail, the opponent frees themselves and is no longer mobilized. And critical fail, the opponent frees themselves, is no longer mobilized, and can perform a melee attack action as a free action. Knock to the ground. The knock to the ground action means performing a melee attack aimed at removing whatever is keeping the opponent standing so that they fall to the ground. This could take the form of a sweep, a strike aimed at the legs, or even a targeted push as practiced in certain martial arts. This MA is performed against an MA test performed by the opponent. The effects then depend on the result. Critical success. The opponent receives the damage dice of the melee attack and is also knocked over. Success. The opponent is knocked over but with no damage. Fail, no effect. Critical fail. The attacker is knocked over. Holding back. A character who performs a successful melee attack may choose to inflict minor damage called temporary DD if they want to avoid hurting or killing an opponent and only want to neutralize them. The melee attack test receives a penalty of -2 unless the attacker uses a weapon whose damage is always temporary. The attacker's strength mod does not apply to their temporary DD, and they are free to inflict upon their target a number of DD between 1 and the result of their damage die. All right. I'm going to read this example. Nightwing wants to question a hoodlum who has 5 hit points left. Nightwing hits the target with a nightstick, with no penalty, as this weapon only ever inflicts temporary damage, and obtains 5 points on his damage dice. Nightwing's strength modifier is not added to this because he has held back. As he does not wish to knock the hoodlum out, he chooses to inflict 4 temporary damage dice points, meaning that the hoodlum is on the point of blacking out. Now that he is not resisting, Nightwing can question him. Okay, you know what? I like that. I have to give them credit. They keep putting in a bunch of rules that don't always make sense. Like for at least compared to like other role-playing games, but they make perfect sense as far as like, Batman. Like that I don't want to kill you, but or not. I mean, obviously it's Batman. He's not going to kill him anyways. But I want to do just enough damage to keep you from passing out. I really like that kind of a rule. So, all right, tell us about the ranged attack special actions.
All right, range attack special actions inflict normal DD and are governed by the following extra rules and maneuvers. Threaten. For their turn, a character can threaten their target and then wait before performing their RA at the moment of their choice during the round, even if this means interrupting the target's action. If they are less than 60 feet away, the character can aim at a group of individuals located close to each other and only decide which one to target the moment the ranged attack is performed. Finding the weak spot. The player chooses to roll a D2 or 2d20, and keeps the weaker result of the two. If this succeeds, 1d4 plus 2 is added to the damage dealt. If the character is supposed to perform their test using a 2d20, they roll 3d20 and keep the result of their choice between the two lowest. Aiming at a target. It's a limited action, and the attacker takes the time necessary to aim at their target. This allows them to double the range of the weapon without any penalty and add their perception mod to either the RA or the DD score as they prefer. Using a tripod, resting the weapon on something, or lying down to shoot with a long gun allows the range to be multiplied by 4 and still have no penalty applied. That's nice.
Yeah, and actually I like that they put in that finding a weak spot again, because I think I kind of got distracted when I was reading mine. But I think it's interesting where you're going to roll 2d20, keep the lower result, but still get to add extra anyways, it's slightly complicated, but I still like it. It's like, roll, take a penalty, but you can get some extra damage off it. I like that. All right, movement and defense special actions. The last category of special actions concerns those related to the movements and defense of those fighting. A normal movement action allows a character to change their physical position in relation to their opponents. This could be running a few feet, jumping from rooftop to rooftop, jumping up somewhere high on top of a wall or a ledge, swinging on a rope attached to a gargoyle, etc. Confrontations in comics are always spectacular, so feel free to have your characters perform stunts and tricks that would be impossible or very risky in real life, but happen all the time in the adventures of Batman. 2 movement actions are more specific. Breakaway. This means putting distance between your character and an opponent during melee combat with the aim of fleeing the scene. It is performed with a dexterity test against the closest opponents. If the test is a success, the character is able to flee. A failed test allows the opponent to move with the character, and they can also carry out an opportunistic attack, performed as a free action at the initiative level of the individual who attempted to break away. Flee. This is escaping the scene when the character is not at melee distance. If the opponent follows them, refer to the rules governing chases. Otherwise, and if the circumstances allow, the opponent can perform an opportunistic opportunistic ranged attack performed as a free action, as long as the character was forced to leave any cover when fleeing.
Don't those work both ways though? It could affect the characters and the NPCs.
Correct. That's why it says
Right.
the character.
Okay.
So,
All right, move on. I'm good.
yeah, because if it's just a player or just a hero, it usually
Right. Well,
specifies it.
you as character, as Batman or Robin, can be running away, but there's rules that apply.
Right.
Or the bad guy could be running away, and there's rules that apply.
Right. I'm just saying, like, if you see character, usually it's applying to both sides.
Okay.
All right. Defense special actions involve concentrating more on defense than attack. Any character who does not wish to attack during their turn of the game has two possibilities for defending themselves against a melee attack. These actions are useless against ranged attacks, but can be used against a special attack if it resembles a melee attack. Simple defense. A character may choose to sacrifice their attack action to benefit from a +2 defense bonus until their next round. Total defense. A character may choose only to defend themselves during their current round. This limited action gives them a +4 defense bonus until their next turn. So think about it like, like you're just sitting there and you're putting your arms in front of your face, something like that. It's like, oh, I'm just trying to stop this attack. So,
All right.
all right.
Additional actions and endurance. From its stinking sewers to its luxury mansions, Gotham City is home to some exceptional beings who are capable of extraordinary things. Any character with an initiative score between 20 and 29 has the opportunity to perform an additional action each round. This can be a free, attack, or movement action and is performed at their initiative score -10. A character with an initiative score between 30 and 39 can intervene a third time using the round under the same conditions. And characters with an initiative score between 40 and 49 can intervene a fourth time during a round, and so on. Endurance. Even if it's extremely rare to see comic characters stopping to catch their breath during a fight, real-life combat becomes exhausting. Amen. If you want to take this factor into consideration, you may consider that a fighter can act as normal for a number of rounds equal to half their constitution score rounded up. Once past this, all their tests are made with a penalty of -1 per extra round until they take the time to get their breath back. Each round spent doing so allows them to reduce the penalty accrued by 1 point. Detrimental states. A detrimental state is a penalty applied to characters because of unfavorable circumstances. If a character is weakened, they use a d12 for tests. Blinded is a -5 penalty applied to their initiative, their melee attack, and their deaf, and a -10 to their range attack. If a blind character has a special attack that uses sight, this also receives a penalty of -10. Stunned, they are unable to perform any actions and suffer a -5 death penalty for 1 round. Immobilized, they cannot move to another place and they use a d12 for all of their tests. Paralyzed, they are unable to perform any action. Attacks targeting them automatically succeed and are considered a critical success. Oof, that's rough. Slowed, they can only perform 1 action per round. Knocked over, they receive a penalty of -1 for their attacks, and deaf. Removing this state, getting up, requires a movement action.
-5, by
Surprised.
the way.
Where? Didn't I not say -5?
You said penalty of -1 for being knocked over.
I thought I said 5. Whatever.
That's right.
Surprised. They cannot perform any action and receive a penalty of -5 for their attacks and death for the round of combat after becoming surprised. Okay. Don't get in an ambush. Extra information. D12 and double dice. When a character has to use a 1d12 instead of a 1d20, but capacity usually allows them to roll a 2d20 and keep the best result, the player rolls 2d12 and keeps the best result. However, they can no longer use the finding the weak spot, melee attack, and range attack actions. While in this state, the character can also no longer use capacities that require replacing the use of d20 with a d12 Additionally, rolling 12 with the D12 is not considered a critical success, but allows the player to roll a 1d20 and keep the better of the two results. Well, that's nice. The result of the d20 still follows the standard rules for obtaining a critical success. Using the
Oh,
what?
I think that some of this editing, but I didn't realize like this is actually pretty good. Like because I don't remember reading this rule before, where if you're using a D12 instead of a D20, if you roll a 12,
It's not a
you get
critical success. I understood
well,
that.
no, but you get to roll a D20.
Right. Yeah,
And
yeah.
if it's better than the 12, you get to keep that result,
Yeah,
and
that's
you can
nice.
still get a critical. Yeah,
Yep.
I have no problems with it. I don't recall seeing it previously. So I don't like when games do that, where it's like, here's this rule that would apply all over the place, but it's hidden, kind
and
of.
it does say that you would do that because of a detrimental state or when attacking using your non-dominant hand, etc. Which it's going to go into that in just a minute.
Right. No, exactly. Okay, then that makes me curious if this applies in all cases or just because basically like detrimental state
It's
being
everything that I just listed above: weakened, blinded, stunned, immobilized, paralyzed, slowed, knocked over, surprised.
right. Okay,
All right.
keep
Using
going.
the non-dominant hand, left hand for someone right-handed, etc. To perform an attack using a weapon requires rolling 1d12 rather than 1d20 for the MA or RA test. This penalty does not apply for an MA made with the character's bare hands. Okay, so fisticuffs. Simultaneous attacks with two weapons. Performing two MA, RA, or SA simultaneously requires using a limited action. Each of these two attacks is made using 1d12 instead of 1d20, but inflicts regular damage. Changing weapons. Changing weapons when the weapon is an object, not a natural weapon like fists, feet, head, claws, etc. During combat requires a movement action. It's important to respect this rule. Changing weapons should always be an inconvenience. That makes sense. Using grenades. Throwing a grenade requires a limited action. When a character uses a grenade, they are targeting an area, not an individual. For a throw of up to 60 feet, the character must perform a successful ranged attack test. Any further, and the difficulty becomes 15. Note that a grenade cannot be thrown more than 120 feet. It is possible to throw a grenade while staying behind cover to avoid enemy fire, but this increases the difficulty by 5. If the grenade throw is a success, the DD applies to everyone present in the area with a range of 30 feet. If it is a fail, the grenade explodes far from the targeted area and does not have the desired effect. All right, you can do DD and damage.
All right.
I don't know if that's necessary or not.
Okay, real quick. All the rules that follow concern the effects of wounds on characters in Batman RPG. Obviously, they do not attempt to reproduce the gore and pain that a wound would inflict in real life if an injury were sustained to the tendons, muscles, blood vessels, joints, or vital organs of the human body, but to copy roughly how characters in comics get injured and recover very quickly after receiving numerous injuries over the course of a storyline. Don't forget that losing hit points doesn't necessarily mean that physical damage has been done. It is more commonly related to the loss of a fighting capacity by a character, and this explains why hit points can often be regained simply by taking a short rest. With this with this in mind, you will not find a realistic representation of wounds in the following section, but rather a tool for representing one of the conventions of the comics genre in which heroes and supervillains always eventually manage to pick themselves up and carry on.
Must be nice.
Right? All right. Damage dice and damage. When an attack is successful, the attacker determines damage by rolling the DD for the weapon used and adding any applicable modifier or bonus. The damage reduction of any protection is then deducted from this result. Then the target loses a number of hit points equal to the final number. So, the Joker attacks a guard at Arkham Asylum with a steel ball hidden in a birthday cake. The attack is a success. The Joker rolls the weapon's DD, 1d6 temporary, and gets a 5, from which he removes the protection afforded by the guard's protective clothing, a light protective vest with DR5. The ball hits the guard with all its force, but he does not lose any hit points. He can thank his protective vest for saving him, and will tell the story about the strawberry sponge cake that could have killed him for years to come.
Oh man, a waste of a perfectly good strawberry cake. Dang it. Unless the guard wants me to lick it off of him. What?
I think Gary would appreciate that. All right. Damage dice are limitless. Rolls of the damage dice are called limitless. If one of the damage dice lands on its maximum figure, the attacker re-rolls. So 4 for 1d4, 6 for 1d6, etc. The attacker re-rolls it and adds the result to the damage taken by the target. Okay, so exploding damage dice. Interesting. If the reroll lands on the highest figure of the die again, it is re-rolled, and so on, which is why it is referred to as limitless. Note that the lower the damage dealt by the weapon, the higher the chance that a limitless roll occurs. This is to give attacks with fists, feet, etc. the effectiveness and prevalence they have in the comics. As usual, a critical success allows the total damage to be doubled. If the weapons inflict damage with 2 dice, only the die with the maximum result is re-rolled. Temporary damage dice. Okay, actually, real quick. I actually think this is fun. Number one, exploding dice can always be fun. But I also like this example of, limitless, applying to stuff with, like fists and feet, etc. Technically a fist is not going to do that much damage, but in the comics, you're going to have those cases where, the perfect sucker punch, things like that. All right. I really like that. That's cool. All right. Temporary damage dice. Damage dice referred to as temporary are noted separately, as they are different from standard damage dice in the following ways. They never inflict serious wounds. Temporary damage dice are not subtracted from HP and are noted separately. As soon as they exceed the hit points of the target, he or she loses consciousness. Temporary damage dice are then lost at the rate of 1 per minute. As soon as the total temporary damage dice are lower than the target's hit points, he or she regains consciousness. Serious wounds. When a character loses an amount of hit points higher than or equal to their constitution score in a single roll of the dice, they are said to have sustained a serious wound. A character with a serious wound is weakened and uses a d12 instead of a 1d20 for all their tests. NPCs and serious wounds. An extra, generic character, receives a serious wound when they lose a number of hit points equal to or more than their wound level. Unique NPCs receive a serious wound when they lose more than half their hit points. Losing consciousness in serious wounds. When a character sustains a serious wound, they have to perform a difficulty 8 constitution test with a d12. If unsuccessful, they lose consciousness for 1d6 minutes. At the end of this period, a new test is performed with the same difficulty. If successful, the character comes back to their senses. If unsuccessful, they remain unconscious for an additional 1d6 minutes.
Ugh. Way to be incapacitated. Yeah.
All right. Healing a serious wound. Each day after a night of rest, the character can make just one attempt to heal from a serious wound. They must perform a difficulty 8 constitution test. If the character has access to good medical treatment or is hospitalized, the GM can give them a bonus of +2 to +5 for this test. If the test is a success, the serious wound is sufficiently healed for the character to once again use 1d20 for their tests. If it fails, nothing happens, but a critical fail causes a complication to occur, leaving the character requiring intensive care at a hospital. Unconsciousness and neutralization. When an NPC receives a serious wound or their HP falls to 0, the GM may simply consider them to be out of the action and unable to fight. This is more or less definitive depending on the circumstances and wishes of the game master. When a hero's HP falls to 0, they sustain a serious wound and fall unconscious. A hero's HP level cannot go lower than 0, and any extra damage that would cause it to do so is ignored. If the hero does not receive help or medical attention in the following hour, the GM should apply relevant consequences based on the circumstances, especially if the character falls from a building, is trapped in a fire, or run over by a truck. No one said life in Gotham City was easy. Healing a character.
New meaning to the phrase "die in a fire."
Yes. Healing a character whose hit point score has fallen to 0 requires an intelligence test, which takes into account capacities afforded by the medical ways. If the test is successful, the patient comes to their senses after 1d6 minutes and regains 1 hit point, but remains weakened. All right, tell us about healing hit points.
Hit points represent both physical injuries and the stress inherent in combat. Consequently, they are regained fairly quickly through rest. 6 to 8 hours of continuous rest allow a character to regain a number of HP equal to the roll of their hit points die, which is added to their level of experience and constitution modifier. Certain ways allow a hero to regain more HP by receiving treatment from a character who possesses the way of medicine, or by using capacities from the way of healing, if they have that power. HP lost by temporary DD are regained a lot more quickly at the rate of 1 HP per minute of rest. The scene of combat, movement, acrobatics, and destruction. That's a lot of reading. Okay. Scenes of combat in comics generally use all of the possibilities offered by their setting to spice up the action with acrobatics, extraordinary feats, and surprising twists. This spectacular and hectic atmosphere isn't easy to reproduce in a role playing game. What follows, nevertheless, attempts to reproduce the importance that the surroundings can have during a confrontation, mainly because realism is important. Any veteran would tell you that urban combat is very different from fighting on a plain or in the jungle. And any brawler will confirm that a fistfight in a bar is very different from a back alley punch up or a face off in a parking lot. All of which is to say that the place where a fight takes place is hugely important to how it goes down. In Batman RPG, taking the setting into account makes combat closer to how it's represented in the comics by allowing for some spectacular actions. Nothing would be more boring than having combat reduced to rolling dice so that one side hits the other and the other hits back, etc., etc., etc. In reality, all of this is just common sense. The section simply aims to explain the basics to remind you what you should take into account. Combat is highly visual, but it is by its very nature, so we naturally believe it is more engaging for players to use the figurines and game board for Batman. This Gotham City Chronicles. This enables everyone taking part to visualize what's happening, both the setting and the movements of each character, avoiding confusion and disputes while immersing all the players in the action. Whatever the way the action happens, the GM will make sure to give a detailed description of the setting before the players start the combat. Above all, everyone playing should make sure to perform and describe the spectacular moves they make, especially for the more colorful characters in the game, such as the masked Avengers and the costumed supervillains. By imposing a few tests, the GM should encourage these exploits, such as jumping into the roof of a van just before it speeds away, then trying to knock out the driver by breaking their window with a two-legged kick. By staying faithful to the sort of encounter seen in comics, combat becomes an exciting show despite not being completely realistic. But that's Gotham City for you, a place where extraordinary things always happen. Obstacles, elevation, and difficult terrain. From warehouses, chemical factories, and abandoned weather stations to manors and mental asylums, each place has its own characteristics. Combat in Batman RPG should be fast and fun. While we've opted to simplify how the setting is handled, expert GMs may change the propositions as they see fit. Oh, I think that's supposed to be proportions. I don't know.
Mm.
I
No,
just seems like the wrong word. Whatever.
no. Yeah,
I think they
no.
should change the environment as they see fit. That makes more sense to me. Propositions doesn't sound like the right word to me.
It's not a wrong word, but
There are better words out there.
I like how you put it. Change the environment as they see fit, because you're going to start reading it, and all of that stuff is what I would classify as environment for a combat situation. So
Right. Changing elevation is running upstairs, jumping into the roof of a vehicle, blah, blah, blah. Costs 1 movement action. Getting past an obstacle, a wall, a truck blocking the road, a pile of rubble, costs 2 movement actions. Moving over difficult terrain, a puddle of oil or acid, a muddy swamp, halves the distance covered in 1 movement action. Oh, that sucks. That's typical. Each time it's unsure whether the character will be able to change levels, get past an obstacle, or advance safely or over a perilous terrain, the GM will generally ask the character to perform a dexterity test. This may sometimes be a strength test, for example, if the character is trying to get out of a sticky, vicious liquid. Or is it
viscous.
Viscous. There we go. Liquid, or a perception test if moving through a hall of mirrors, or a willpower test if Lord, I'm having trouble with words tonight. Willpower test if the character has to remain calm while sirens set off by Harley Quinn are blaring all around them. The result of the tests will be as follows. A critical success allows the character to accomplish their movement and benefit from extra advantage. A normal success allows the character to accomplish their movement. A fail makes the character knocked over, immobilized, or stunned, depending. A critical fail makes the character knocked over, immobilized, or stunned, depending on the circumstances, and inflicts 1d4 of temporary DD. Okay.
All right. Using the surroundings, spectacular attacks, and improvised weapons. Spectacular attacks. Whether sliding, swinging, or somersaulting, another interesting part of the setting is that it gives fighters opportunities for spectacular attacks, confirmed by bonuses on the attack test. This is especially true for melee fights, but if the GM agrees, daring attacks like a crime fighter throwing a batarang while swinging from a cable can also be rewarded with a bonus. Spectacular attacks work as follows. The player announces that their character is performing 1 movement action using an element in the setting. Note that this action should not be a pre-existing movement action, but an actual risky action, the outcome of which is uncertain and therefore requires a test. The GM determines the difficulty of the action and the characteristic used. The player performs their test applying all the relevant modifiers. Any attack performed while the character is moving benefits from a bonus equal to the margin of success of the test, or receives a penalty equal to the margin of failure of the test. In both cases, this margin is the difference between the difficulty of the test and the result obtained by the player when performing their test. In the case of a critical success, the ensuing attack is automatically a success, but without the possibility of being another critical success. In case of a critical fail, the following attack is automatically a failure. Note that a test with a margin of 0 gives neither a bonus nor a penalty to the attack and is therefore performed as normal. Improvised weapons. During combat, both characters and their opponents will sometimes be tempted to use whatever they can get their hands on as a weapon. Broken bottles, rocks, tree branches, chandeliers, etc. For some particularly powerful individuals like Tusk or Solomon Grundy, this could even mean throwing a card at an opponent. For melee attacks, you can just refer to the table of melee weapons in the chapter about equipment. For ranged attacks, here's a table with a few examples of what fighters might want to use as projectiles. Bear in mind that the range depends on the person throwing and is always equal to 15 feet plus the strength modifier. So anywhere from improvised weapon, anywhere from glass bottles to buses. Yeah. Why not? All right. Destroying the surroundings. A broken window, a smashed wall, furniture and ornaments thrown at people's heads, cars that burst into flames. Fighters are not the only ones that get damaged when fists start flying in Gotham City. Heroes and NPCs alike can perform attacks against things around them, and these attacks can inflict collateral damage on anyone unlucky enough to be nearby. The table below gives a few examples of objects in the surroundings as guidelines for the GM to expand upon. Just like characters, elements in the scene have their own HP, which quantify the state they are in from intact to destroyed. The levels of difficulty do not relate to the difficulty of hitting the target, but the best way of damaging the element. Naturally, the GM has to use their common sense when dealing with these elements of the surroundings. You can't use your fist to damage a metal door, a brick wall, or a vehicle unless your name is Tusk or Solomon Grundy. Apart from things made of glass or light wood, most elements in the surroundings won't be damaged unless tools, explosives, or sufficiently powerful weapons are used. The GM can also decide that attacking a concrete wall without the necessary equipment gives damage dice to anyone who tries.
And
So
that's it for that chapter.
that is it. So all right, any questions? Anything not make sense, or is it all clear as mud?
It's fine, but I have to go.
All right. Well, then, that's not what I.
Yeah, I was
There
gonna
we
say
go.
I didn't log out, so
All right. Well, everybody, thank you so much for watching. We do have to rush because Kim has somewhere to be. But remember, we will be back next Tuesday where we'll continue by looking at ethics during the game, which I'm actually excited to learn a little bit more about because I think it's a fun little alignment system. But regardless, any last words before we go?
no, I think I'm good.
All right. Well, don't forget, like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you'd like to see more, and of course, share it with all your friends, family, and acquaintances, because let's be honest, who doesn't like Batman? So thanks for watching, everybody, and we will talk to you next time.